Okay, that time pushing the button worked. The button did not button the first time you buttoned.
Oh. Whoops. It did that yesterday, too. What the hell? Anyway. Hold on a second. I'm going to switch out my ears.
No, I understand. We gotta...
Do yourself a favor. Yeah. That way. And good morning. I see Danny's got first blood this morning. Hello, sunshine. Striker's with us. Welcome back, brother. And there's GCM, my man. Hey, GCM. I saw your short the other day with the with that asshole cop that went. He kept going down the road and then turned around to come back and pull you over and tried to make up some shit because you flipped him off. That I'm looking forward to hearing how that one turns out for you, brother. Because that was. Because he straight up walks up to Ben's window. He's all like, "You know why I pulled you over?" And it's like, I was wondering why you turned around illegally in the middle of traffic without turning your lights on. But no, I know exactly why you pulled me over. Because you're a piece of shit.
You know, Papa Sheepdog used to say, contempt of the law is a crime. Contempt of a cop is not. It's dumb, but it is not a crime. Like, the charge is obstruction of justice, not obstruction of officer.
Correct.
That is not an accident.
And you know, I was with you right up until you said it's dumb, because honestly, I'm running out of anything but contempt for the police of late. But that is not what we're talking about this morning.
Dude, it's dumb. You pick fights where you don't need one. I mean, love you, Ben, really, but I don't know that flipping off cops is what you call a wise life decision.
Okay, this is a whole topic that we could definitely go down, but that's not what we're talking about this morning. Stryker says contempt of cop varies. Yeah. And GCM says jury trial in April. That, you know what?
Have fun with that.
Yeah, but we need to get on the phone again, brother. I'll talk to you soon. I see Scrimshaw's with us, and there's my cousin Jen. Good morning, sunshine. Good morning. If you haven't already left her with the babysitter, kiss that baby Iva for me. Love you. But this morning, Uncle Steve, good morning. Okay, so what are we talking about this morning? We're talking about competency.
Yeah, woke Wednesday. When you're so woke. When you're so woke,
you're stupid.
When you're so woke, you'll hire Mean Jean Parriere for...
Excuse me.
Like, objectively speaking, dude, at least Peppermint Patty.
Karen Jane Pear?
Look, seriously, at least the previous one, Peppermint Patty, Jen Psaki, at least she could actually do the job.
Yeah, she could. She was very good at the job. She walked up to that podium with her sheaf of notes and lied right to your face.
I'm not saying she was ethical. I'm just saying, like,
Jane
at least she
Eyre
was
can't
competent.
even do that effectively.
No, she can't.
She just recently convinced all of us that aliens are real by delivering the official White House position that there were no aliens involved in the recent spate of UFOs. And I'm sorry, if Joe Biden denies a thing,
No, I'm with you.
That's the same as not sleeping with Fang Fang.
I'm with you. Like, please, like, Joe Biden, please don't come out and tell me the sky is blue, because I will have an existential crisis.
Yeah, pretty soon all of our young Geobat GIs are gonna get general issued freaking Chinese spy wives.
So one of the things that's come from being woke is it's really crippled our ability to level legitimate criticism at people and situations and entertainment and really just everything. There's an element of madness to woke where you're not allowed to say this thing is obvious. Obvious thing is obvious. I'm obviously seeing it with my obvious eyes.
Right, but on this show, we will continue to call the baby ugly.
Right. So if a thing is obvious, and then if what is obvious about the thing makes you dislike it, like, let's say, I don't know, Velma is trash because it's a Scooby-Doo show without Scooby-Doo, but it's got lots of representation. That doesn't actually make for a good show at all. You know, like, how about you're an asshole and you're rude and you're all these terrible things. Like, how dare you make fun of Joe Biden? He just has a stutter. No, he doesn't. It's not that hard to pull clips of Joe Biden from 10 years ago, but he didn't have a stutter.
Right. He still said stupid crap all the time.
Yeah, but that's right. Still said stupid crap, but he could get entire sentences out.
But there's a very clear distinction between Joe Biden, the ranting sociopath racist, and Joe Biden, the ranting sociopath racist with dementia. Right? Yes. So they're not two different people. One of them has just grown steadily more confused. And this is an important part of this conversation before we get into Fetterman. Fetterman is just the most recent and the most obvious recent example. But going into 2020, it was already painfully clear, and it's gotten worse since his inauguration, but it was already painfully clear that Biden was not mentally competent to drive his own car, let alone work as the president of the United States of America.
Yeah, let's have the hardest, most stressful job in the world, and let's give that to somebody whose brain is collapsing. I said then, it's elder abuse.
It is.
So it brings us around to, and I don't think it is at all an accident that this is how the story is being framed. I'm sure y'all have heard, John Fetterman has been hospitalized for depression. And is apparently going to be in the hospital for weeks, which I find very curious.
And I'm sure it has nothing to do with his stroke or the removal of whatever that freaking thing was on the side of it. Have you seen the pictures since he had the whatever it was, the cyst, the growth on his neck removed? And there's just like this
hole.
There's this hole. Yeah. It's... I've had a bad spot removed.
We don't need to talk about that. It's
without going into detail. I mean, it's rough, and it wasn't on my neck. It wasn't attached to my brain stem, and it was rough.
So, you want to read this one?
Yeah, Senator John Fetterman's hospitalization for depression after a stroke raises questions about the connection. Here's what we know. Okay.
Nope. Actually read it. Don't do the thing. Come on, buddy.
Democratic Senator John Fetterman's hospital... Okay, I'm not going to do it. Democrat Senator John Fetterman's hospitalization for the treatment of clinical depression has raised questions about the links between depression and strokes and how long he'll need to be hospitalized. The Pennsylvania Democrat who suffered a stroke last May ahead of winning the Senate nomination has experienced depression on and off throughout his life, according to his office, although it only became severe in recent weeks. Okay, so it may be that his depression only became severe in recent weeks, but we saw the debates, and we'll get to the debates again a little more in a minute here. But the debate showed a very clear delineation between his mental capacity before and after his stroke. Fetterman cannot process human language.
Yeah, he's got obvious aphasia.
Right, yes. Without medical assistance.
Oh, there's that obvious thing again. He obviously has aphasia. Yeah. And then somebody from Twitch, Misery Lover 370.
Get you some.
That is Twitch names are always the best. They're just always the best. So, okay, I said initially when I first heard this, like, you know what? I would not at all be surprised if John Fetterman is depressed. And okay, fine. I'm sure there is a direct connection between depression and strokes because, like, you know, if the right side of your body just doesn't work anymore, that's pretty depressing. Okay,
that's how I write notes, eat bacon, pull triggers. My life is nothing without those things.
Right,
but
so yeah, there's probably
I had something. Okay. So the depression thing, yes, it's absolutely understandable that he might have depression. Let's assume we're not even talking about the loss of physical ability as a result of the stroke. Even if the stroke itself is not like neurochemically attached to the onset of depression, which I think there's a high degree of probability that it is, and apparent correlation and data suggests that to be the case. How about just basic imposter syndrome?
See, that's
all of a sudden you're elected senator.
Well, this is not imposter syndrome.
And feel like, wow, do I really belong here?
Well, okay, imposter syndrome happens when you actually, at least in theory, have the capacity to do the thing you're worried you're an imposter about. John Fetterman doesn't have the capacity to be a senator, okay?
No, that doesn't mean he doesn't incorrectly believe.
No. Look, but what I'm saying is, in this case, it's imposter syndrome is when you're not an imposter. John Fetterman's actually an imposter, and that would be really, really, really depressing. I could see it just on the surface level, just the basic narrative being, well, gosh, my trophy wife told me I could do it. I thought I could do it. The news media propped me up. I thought it could happen. I thought I could do it. And then I got here and realized, holy shit, the number one thing a senator needs to be able to do is hold conversations. And I can't do that without so many accommodations that it's going to be next to impossible for me to have any impact on this job. I'm literally one of the most important and powerful people in the country, and I'm impotent and cucked and worthless. That's,
Damn, son. Remember Ron White did a joke about smearing cake on your ass and then using a bidet? And he said, and that was when I thought 12 million gay men can't be wrong. Well, according to what you just described there with
thank you, Jen,
with the trophy wife, the Democrat National Party, and the press all thinking that he could do it. Apparently, Ron, they can be wrong. That many people can actually be wrong.
So yeah, the thing of it is, though, okay, and Jen says, and she put it much better than me, imposters can't have imposter syndrome, okay, because, you know, that's the...
Right.
It's a totally separate thing. And look, maybe before his stroke, arguably, quite likely before his stroke, if we've just got, like, the basic standards at play, Fetterman was capable of doing the job. He could have talked, he could have listened, he could have negotiated, he could have engaged with ambassadors and community organizers and pastors, and his colleagues and everything else, okay? But now, Now it's obvious that he can't. Like, he got there, he spent a few days there and went, holy shit, so much flies back and forth so fast, and I'm literally missing every 1, 2, 3 words in the things that the people around me are saying. Chris and I had a discussion off air that we don't have to get too far into, but it's a pretty terrifying possibility. Because of the way you must communicate with John Fetterman, you could trick him into signing anything. Because the story is, it's the speech he has a problem with, but when he can read it, he's got a near 100% comprehension rate.
Right.
So, well, let's just assume that's true for a moment. Okay, fine. We talk about one thing. We could talk about, I don't know, something insane, like, I don't know, maybe finally closing the background, the gun show loophole with background checks, right? We could talk about that, and then you could put something else in front of him entirely. He signs onto it, and now John Fetterman has signed on to gun control legislation that he literally did not understand because he believed it was something else entirely.
Honestly, the only reason that's a bad example is because he'd sign onto the gun control legislation on his own anyway. But your point is well taken. You're absolutely correct. But I want to back up just a little bit. You said, as we understand it, as we're led to believe, it's the speech that he has a problem with, but as long as he can read it, everything's okay. Y'all, I don't know how many of you actually watched the Fetterman-Oz debate, but they set up a specialized teleprompter for Fetterman to help him overcome that problem, and it didn't.
Well,
he still failed to understand questions, failed to understand statements made by Oz, and responded to even simple questions with bizarre, broken, confused responses.
I actually looked this up because and I won't get too personal with it, but my father died of a series of strokes. So as what happens when a family member becomes sick with an illness, you suddenly become an armchair expert on said illness. And it's entirely possible for both the incoming speech and the outgoing speech to get scrambled. But visual forms of communication are fine, and vice versa. It's possible to hear everything fine and still speak poorly. It's possible to, like, every flavor. I'm just saying it's conceivable.
I understand all of that. What I'm saying is that the evidence that has been presented to us, as in the debate where he was actually given the written work to work with, shows us that that is not the case for Fetterman. He's not even able to process the written word in the way that we're led to believe that he should be able to.
Well, look, it's a distinction that isn't terribly important to this. It's possible that he read and understood, but still couldn't talk. There's separate pathways in the brain. However, we should flip over to that article from before the election.
Fetterman and Oz debate highlights ableism in politics, advocates say.
This was written before the election, okay? And
it was. And the first time I ever heard the use of the word ableism was in a college class about 10 or so years ago. And around that time, there were some stories going around about ableism, advocacy, and the like, and there was a brief spike in a number of people who felt like they were disabled even though they weren't, and were seeking the right to have limbs amputated to allow their bodies to conform to their perceived disability. We're not talking about people who had something wrong with a limb. Otherwise physically healthy people having limbs removed over the social contagion bullshit of pretending like a person who is disabled is the same as a person who is not disabled.
The transableist, literally, the transableist.
Exactly, they were called transableists. That we haven't heard much more about them in the news, and I think for one, because we're talking about amputation, and there's a certain flavor of amputation that's just all the rage for the social contagion at the moment, that the lefties desperately need not to be stigmatized any more than it naturally should be. But this idea of ableism, I'm just about stone deaf without my hearing aids. I use a device to allow myself to function normally. That is a thing that people have to deal with. And it does mean that there are some professions that I don't belong in, or at least cannot engage in, or at least cannot engage in without some sort of assistive device.
Oh, God, sometimes your dad is.
I know. So in the Pennsylvania race for a seat in the U.S. Senate, Democrat candidate John Fetterman has had to continuously defend his ability to serve as he recovers from a life-threatening stroke. Yes, he's had to continuously defend his ability to serve because he doesn't have the ability to serve. At a minimum, going into his election, having had the stroke, even if he had taken the time to recover like he clearly should have but did not, and did recover from the stroke, it is still a fact that one factor worth considering is whether or not his now dramatically increased risk of recurrent stroke is a factor worth considering for his election to high office. Again, my doctor believes that I'm fit to be serving, and that's what I believe where I'm standing, he said on the debate stage Tuesday night, citing a letter from his primary care doctor and declining comment to releasing medical records. According to Fetterman's doctors, go ahead.
Didn't Joe Biden's doctors say he's just fine, but Joe Biden won't release his medical records?
That is correct.
I'm not real sure what that has to do with anything with what we're talking about now. Just some strange reason I thought about it. Please continue reading the article.
According to Fetterman's doctors, the candidate sometimes has difficulty speaking and experiences auditory processing issues 5 months after his stroke. Okay, if the doctor said that he's fit to serve, okay, he's a politician. His job is to speak, think, and make complex decisions with extraordinary consequences and implications. The doctor apparently has issued a letter that says John is okay to do the job. He has trouble with all the things that are required for doing the job, and he's really bad at those things in particular, but that doesn't mean he's not able to do the job. Fetterman's doctor is either a liar or an idiot.
Well, if you go into the end of that very same paragraph, this is where they start getting really tricky with the language. However, neurologists have told ABC News that language issues do not indicate cognitive impairment for stroke survivors. That's actually technically correct. And isn't it funny how they just shift those goalposts just a little bit? Nobody's saying Fetterman's stupid, okay? Nobody's saying that Fetterman has dementia like our president who has dementia, okay? Nobody's saying that. But we are saying, yo, dude obviously has a problem. Dude can't do the job, okay? Somebody referenced blurry vision. My vision is bad enough where it would be extremely dangerous for me to drive at night without either my contacts or glasses. Like, right. It would be dangerous. So, now, I don't do it.
I want to push back a little bit on you saying nobody's saying he's stupid. We do have information, we have clips that we can go back and look at Fetterman before he had the stroke. Fetterman's not a bright guy. He's not, right? This guy spent some time in jail. He's covered up in tattoos. He's He's against gun ownership, and he's flip-flopped on some major issues.
Okay, let me clarify.
He's not the brightest
Nobody's
guy,
saying he's stupid as a result of his stroke.
but there's a much more important clarification to be made here. It is also the case that being a dumbass, Maxine Waters, has never actually been a bar to high office. There's a lot of idiots that get elected.
Sheila Jackson Lee, Hank Johnson.
Oh my God. That,
look,
you know what?
If it's as heavy as 5 or 10 boxes, but it tips over Guam.
The fact that Hank Johnson has been elected may be sufficient evidence to negate the value of our entire argument about qualification for office.
Look, I was going to try and tie a bunch of stuff together. Okay, so if it's as heavy as 5 or 10 boxes and it almost tips over Guam, does that mean you're still John Fetterwoman? No, but I'm just saying that the criticisms were obvious, and we covered the debate. And if those of you that have been with us have said, I actually found it very sad and depressing to watch.
Yes.
Like, I actually had a large amount of human empathy for John Fetterman because it was very obvious that he was, woo, buddy, you want to talk about all the way up that creek and no paddle, okay?
And on this show, like you're saying, we've cracked a few jokes at Fetterman's expense, and there's a lot of material there to work with. He's not real bright. He's definitely past his prime. The stroke has obviously had some serious effects on him, but
yeah, all that stuff about.
But it's also fair to point, and I think significant to point out that the majority of our criticism here, with vis-a-vis Fetterman generally, has been about the just callous heartlessness of the Democrats to abuse somebody in this way. Just like we talked about elder abuse with Joe Biden, this thing with Fetterman, what monsters must you be to push this poor little fat kid out on the field to be the only dodgeball player without a red rubber ball in his hand?
I think that's it. And I think that's why he's going to be hospitalized for weeks for depression, because they are, in fact, I'm going to make some assumptions. I'm going to assume that John Fetterman is praying he can recover some of his cognitive function. It's not likely. Wherever you are 6 months after your stroke is probably where you're going to be for the rest of your life.
Right.
Okay? So John Fetterman is going to have trouble hearing and speaking for the rest of his life. And ironically, news stories have started to come out that say, if John Fetterman had just taken a few weeks off of campaigning when he originally had his stroke and actually done he'd probably be in way better shape right now. And it's like, no shit, you don't say. You know who said stuff like that months ago? Us, the jerks, the guys that are practicing ableism. Okay, that it's a distraction. You big mean jerks. How dare you say that just because somebody has a brain injury doesn't mean they should not do a job that requires them to use their brain? It's like, well, okay, I mean, how long before, we have quarterbacks with no arms? Well, how dare you say he can't play football because he doesn't have arms? Well,
I didn't say can't play football. I said he can't do it well.
And there's other examples that we've talked about before. Like, it's obvious now in retrospect, and we'll probably never get this confirmed without more leaks from the Supreme Court, but those things tend to only go one direction. Surprise, surprise. But I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg knew she had a terminal cancer diagnosis a full year, maybe even 2 before she actually died. But because, the left-wing cause is more important than any one person, the collective, the struggle. So a woman that should have, by all rights, spent the last portion of her life at home, playing with her grandchildren, being as comfortable as possible. That if we take all of our personal feelings out of it and just look at the objective measures, this woman earned a comfortable retirement. Absolutely. Did she get it? No. Did she hang on for dear life because power and the message is more important than anything else? Yep. And that's how we end up with John Fetterman. That's not only how we end up with John Fetterman, but that's how we end up with not being able to criticize having John Fetterman. Goes back to what we started out with. When you're so woke, you're not allowed to say obvious thing is obvious because it's racist or sexist or homophobic or, in this case, ableist. Well, you know what? Fine. I am an ist. I am a bigot. Absolutely. I am so bigoted. I want for people to be basically competent to do the thing that they say that they can do. Hey, you know all 50 states make you take a driver's test? You know why? Because you're going to drive a car. It's just, funny that. Well, fine. If we're talking about ableism, why a driver's test?
Well, that's easy. The state needs to sell you back a right that it's confiscated.
Listen, you know that I'm not. Listen, there's actually a law coming down in Georgia that we should maybe circle back to, not today, but there's a law being proposed in Georgia that actually sort of addresses that. But no, I wasn't asking that in the philosophical sense of the tyranny of the government. I was just asking in the pragmatic sense. Like, honestly, we're all bigoted. We're all prejudiced. It's a survival mechanism that's built into us as human beings. Like, hey, every time we go out at night, the fucking lions eat us. Maybe we'll sleep at night and go out during the day so that it's harder for the lions to sneak up on.
We'll sleep in a cave with a rock on the door.
Right. Right. Every time we eat those purple berries, we get sick and some of us die. Maybe don't eat the purple berries.
Yeah, let's do that.
And in that long list of things, going forward, if your senator can't hear and speak, they're not a senator. Period. So that's why there's this long period of... Yeah, depressed, sure, that's the cover story. That is, in fact, another layer of this woke bullshit. You're not allowed to criticize depression, Chris.
Right.
Mental health is so important. No, he's depressed. And you jerk. First you made fun of him for having a stroke. Now you're making fun of him for being depressed? You jerk.
And mental health is incredibly important. It is also a potentially disqualifying condition. I mean, do you want police officers out there whose neighbors' dogs are telling them to kill people? Mental health is a very real thing. And just like any other very real thing, it is a factor that requires consideration, which means it is a factor that should, in some cases, be a disqualifier. If your mental health is poor, you're not fit to do the job.
The Army has no problem with an IQ test.
If you're somebody who wets themselves and falls over backwards and starts crying every time a gun's shot at you, you're probably not the battle buddy I want on patrol with me. And I'd like to know that shit before we get into...
Before the firefight starts?
Before we get out into it. Right? I'd like to know if you're the kind of guy who is going to return fire when I'm laying on the ground.
Yeah, if you can't carry heavy shit, don't be a fireman. If you faint at the sight of blood, don't be an EMT. This is not bigotry in the negative sense.
It's not rocket surgery.
Right? And for that matter, I want the guys that work on rockets to be absolute mathematical, slightly autistic geniuses.
Right.
Because they're rockets!
And I don't want them to miss.
Well, depending on which side of the rockets you're on.
Rockets are like bullets.
You
never miss. Even if you don't hit what you were aiming at, you gonna hit something. And something might be me. So I appreciate your judicious marksmanship.
Yes, Pitt Danny says that would mean judging on merit. And there you go. Yes, there you go. Judging on merit. I know we're over, and I know, it would be super, super, super brief. But he says judging on merit, and you want to talk about a segue. Because that is
Okay, but we're 6 minutes over, so we got to be quick with this one.
well, and I've got something I have to do in just a few minutes.
I know you want to talk about this. I haven't watched this show. I'm not going to watch this show.
And that's okay, and that's the thing. You will recall though that when the first trailer dropped, we were very hard on this. Okay.
Well, and okay, so you had me pull up the season 3 Rotten Tomatoes. Let me go back to season 1 real quick. And just
there's an audience. Critics say it's good. The audience is like.
Well, critics say it's pretty good.
Right? The audience is like, nah.
Yeah, not so much. But apparently the critics and the audience both agree that season 3 is better.
Okay, so we were really hard on the trailer, and one of the things that we talked about a lot on Woke Wednesday is how basically everything, you loved when you were young has been co-opted by the left and is used to abuse you now. So, a lot of the really, really nerdy channels that got sneak peeks at season 3 of Picard said, actually, it's good. So I watched the first episode, and I'm afraid to say it out loud because, yeah.
Because I'm going to hit you?
No. So far, episode 1 was good, which is just shocking I didn't think it was possible. Anyhow, I only wanted to briefly mention it because I intend to watch the 3rd season. No, I have not seen all of the first, and I have seen none of the 2nd season because the little bit of the first season that I saw was so bad. But no, the first episode of the 3rd season's pretty good. Like, the characters act like the characters from the show instead of whatever woke bullshit is. Yeah. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am just going to get my heart broken over again. But you said you're not going to watch no matter what. And obviously we can't get too far into this because we're already over. But there's a discussion to be had here at some point about when things come back. Or when privately, remember, I used the example that said if you have somebody that is an addict, makes a mess of their life, hurts all the people around them, and this addict has 2 friends. One friend of the addict cuts them off for life, even though the addict has recovered. And there is nothing wrong with that decision that this person has made. Friend number 2 gives them another chance, and it's chance 13 or 14. But the addict has reformed. The addict truly intends to never use drugs again for the rest of their life and is willing to make whatever sacrifices are necessary to make that a possibility for success. Boy, that was I shouldn't have said possibility, whatever. Both interpretations are not incorrect. And so if we want our entertainment to give us certain things, and our entertainment is starting to give us certain things, after all the abuse it's heaped on us, do we ignore the things that we want? Or do we say, yes, thank you, finally, this is what I have wanted to spend my money on the entire time? And I don't know. And obviously, even Chris and I sitting here, if I'm watching season 3 and Chris is not, he and I can't even agree on that answer. Right. So there's a real discussion there. However, if you're a big damn nerd and you just want some Star Trek that doesn't suck, episode 1 of Picard was pretty good. Season 3, not the first 2 seasons; those were trash. But episode 1 of season 3 was pretty good.
All right. Well, we're gonna put a pin in it right there.
Yeah. I got a thing at 8:30.
Tomorrow's Thursday. I don't expect a total win.
No. Oh, tomorrow. No, our private channels really want us to chew into the Project Veritas thing.
Oh.
And that
okay.
I think they are correct.
Okay. I'll go back to the infamous thread today. I've got a little time today. And we'll see what we got there. All right, thanks for watching this morning, guys. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.